Welcome back to APP 2015. I'm talking with Paul Sinclair, the President of the Pharmacy Guild of Australia's New South Wales branch and a Guild National Councillor. Welcome, Paul, and
thank you, Chris.
Have you been enjoying APP 2015?
Yep, APP is great. It's the big coming together of the tribes each year. It's a great opportunity to see pharmacists from all over Australia and representatives from all the major stakeholders.
Now, Paul, you're also the Chair of the Pharmacy Viability Committee and Head of the Guild's sixth Community Pharmacy Agreement negotiating team. How are the negotiations going at the moment? What's the state of play?
The state of play is that government is engaging through a series of multilateral and bilateral conversations with a broad range of stakeholders. The Guild engaged in a similar process halfway through the agreement, and those discussions will inform both government and the Pharmacy Guild in the formal negotiations. But we're certainly started the engagement process and looking now forward to moving it as quickly as possible to completion.
And you've been able to so far convey to the government the Guild's agenda for the agreement?
Yes, we've got a very clear list of outcomes we're looking to achieve in the agreement, based around a remuneration requirement for the industry going forward that will keep pharmacy dispensaries viable. That's our key criterion for the next agreement, that pharmacy dispensaries must remain viable in provision of medicines on behalf of the government. We're looking also to a clear and transparent funding model for those services such as DAAs, which most pharmacies provide, which previously have been subsidised or cross-subsidised by generic trading terms. And we'd also like to see the government have a much greater commitment to funding of mechanisms and programs for patient adherence to medication. And
what's the feedback been to date? Have you heard anything back from the government?
From government, government's listening, Chris. We've engaged with a number of conversations, and the government has our attention.
Okay. And what's the time frame for the agreement?
The Minister has said that she would like the process finished, obviously before the completion of this time, the fifth agreement, which is 30 June. And we are certainly looking to have the new agreement in place, in business by the 1st of July 2015.
If the negotiations don't conclude by then, there is a mechanism for the fifth agreement to continue, isn't there?
There is, as has happened in the past, Chris. It has been rolled over. That's not on our radar. We want this business done and we want it completed.
Now, we heard a talk yesterday by Ken Orr, the President of the New Zealand Guild. He was talking about the contract that the New Zealand pharmacists have signed with their government, and at the talk you also said that the parts of that weren't applicable to the Australian situation. Can you outline that for our listeners?
Certainly. Governments look at different models all around the world, as does the Guild, where we're looking for opportunities for new professional services and comparable schemes around the world. New Zealand has a different model to the Australian model. We defend our model very aggressively because we think we deliver very good health outcomes and we deliver very good value for the money that the taxpayer is paying. There are issues with the New Zealand model on the way it's delivered. New Zealand is a far smaller country than Australia. They don't have the logistical problems that we have. Our gross domestic product here is significantly more than New Zealand. Australians earn more money than New Zealanders, and most importantly, in New Zealand they don't have the industrial relations regime that we have here. In New Zealand they don't pay overtime for working on weekends, which is one of the major issues we have in provision of our services, 7 days a week, and for many of our members, extended hours during those 7 days.
Are there any things we can take from their agreement though?
Yes, they have a couple of funded programs which we think would be well suited to the Australian market. They include point of care testing in pharmacy for warfarin dosage administration and changing, for INR reading. That is something that has been done very effectively in New Zealand. They have extended care programs for people with specific medication needs, people with cognitive issues, people with mental health issues. Those programs certainly we see opportunity for, and also vaccination.
Okay.
Vaccination is has been adopted in New Zealand, and we see significant potential for that here.
And on that very topic, I mean, George Tambassis, your national president, said yesterday that he expects to see all states ready to go with vaccination within 18 months. Now, I've spoken to you previously about the New South Wales situation, and it's one of the states that doesn't have legislation as yet. What's the state of play there? Do you expect to see something happen soon? Yes,
in fact, we had an announcement last week that the regulation change required to allow pharmacists to carry and administer influenza vaccine has been gazetted, which is a great move forward. New South Wales was one of the first to start the conversation about vaccination.
But it's been held up by the election, I suppose, as well.
Yes, although we were pleased to see this announcement. What will happen now is that there will be, to give standing to the regulation change, there will be a consultation period where stakeholders will be consulted around guidelines and standards that would apply for pharmacist vaccination, similar to a process that is occurring in Western Australia. And we would hope that we will be in a position to start administering influenza vaccine in the latter part of this season.
And have both major parties been supportive of that?
Yes, indeed. In fact, the Labor Party a few weeks ago went public in their support, and the government and the Health Minister, Gillian Skinner, reaffirmed their support, and as recently as 10 days ago, and last week introduced that regulation change for gazetting.
Well, that's good news for all New South Wales pharmacists then, I expect, Paul.
Absolutely, yeah. A great professional opportunity, a great outcome in terms of improving vaccination rates within our community, and certainly we hope it will open the door for more professional services in community pharmacy.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Paul.
Pleasure, Chris.
And we'll be back with more from APP 2015 from Pharmacy News soon.